All right, this is going to be the video for lesson 2.2, the last page. This is page 4, and we're going to look at some word problems at the back. So for this one, we're going to go through this process. We're going to read the question first, then we're going to read the problem. This helps us identify what's being asked for, and so when you read through it again, when you read through it after reading the question, you kind of can figure out what stuff's important and maybe start thinking about how to use the information. If you just read it through the first time, you don't know really what to do with the information until you get to this question. And this is also going to help you define your variable. What you're being asked to find is almost always what your variable is going to represent. Then we're going to write our equation, and then we're going to solve it by flip, combine, divide. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first problem is, how many games did you bowl? And so for this one, we're going to define, let's just use the letter B. So B is going to be the number of games, right? The number of games that we bowled. And so we know what that represents now. And so it's not just a random letter, it actually means something. So when I see B, I don't think of B, I think of what it represents when we set up. All right, so let's read the question. Blake's Bowling Alley offers a special. Each game costs $2.50, and the shoe rental is $2. You spend a total of $14.50. So we want to build an equation from that. And usually how we do that for these, especially for this problem, we can see they gave us a total, $14.50. Now, we'll put the $14.50 on this side. Here, we're going to show the parts or the pieces that made up this $14.50. So what did we specifically spend money on? Well, we did a $2 shoe rental. That's a one-time thing, right? We pay that once when you show up. And then you pay $2.50 for every game you play. So this $14.50 consists of the $2 plus the amount of money we spent on the games. So let's put the $2 in, and that's a one-time thing, so I'm just going to put it right here. And now what about the cost for all the games? Well, it's $2.50 times the number of games that we played, right? If we played 2 games, you do $2.50 times 2, which is $5. If you played 3 games, you do $2.50 times 3, which would be $7.50. So all we're doing is we're taking the number of the cost of a game, and we're multiplying it to how many games we actually bowled. So it's going to be $2.50 times B. I don't need a multiplication symbol because they're next to each other. This implies multiplication. So this is $2.50 times the number of games plus the $2. That's your $14.50. And so that's how we build an equation. But I think defining the variable and always thinking of it in terms of what it means, what it represents, versus just some random letter. All right, let's go ahead and solve. So it's going to be flip, combine, divide. We'll flip the $2. It becomes negative $2. And we'll bring down the $2.50. B. Now we'll combine. That is a war. Positives win. So $14.50 minus 2 is $12.50. And then our last step is divide. We always divide by the number in front of the variable. So 2.50 and 2.50. And then we'll go ahead and do that division. We got a calculator for that. So we'll do the 2.5 or 12.5 divided by the 2.5. I don't really need the zeros. You can put them in if you want. That's 5. So B equals 5, which means 5 games. So we'd have to bowl 5 games for the cost to be $14.50. And we can see that that's true. We can check it. We can say $2.50 times 5, because that's how many games we paid, plus the $2 for the shoes is $14.50. So we can confirm that answer. All right, let's take a look at the next problem. Here we're looking at renting boats, and we want to know how many hours did you rent the boat. So H makes sense for hours. This is the number of hours. Renting boats on a lake costs $22 per hour, plus there's a flat fee of $10 for insurance. If you paid $98 to rent the boat, how many hours did you rent? So this flat fee is just a one-time thing. You pay $10. The $22 you pay for every single hour. So it's 22 times however many hours. If you did 2 hours, it would be 22 times 2, which is 44. If it was 3 hours, it'd be 22 times 3, which is 66. So we know that the relationship here is going to be the number of the $22 times the number of hours. So let's start with the total, which is 98. And this $98 consists of the $10 for the insurance and the $22 times the number of hours to find out how much we paid for the boat rental for the hours part, right? So we know we paid $10 and then $22 for every hour. All right, let's solve. First step is we flip. 10 flips over here. It becomes negative 10. And then I'll combine 88 because it is a war. Positives win, so we subtract. And then our last step, division, always divide what's in front of the variable, in this case 22. So we wind up with H equals 4 hours. So you'd have to rent the boat for 4 hours for it to cost you $98. We can confirm that. So 22 times the 4 hours plus the $10 for the insurance is 98. All right, let's take a look at the last one. So for this last problem here, we are looking at how many bottles of water did Raymond buy? So we're trying to find that. And so we'll do, I don't know, let's use B. B is the number of bottles of water. All right, so Raymond buys bottles of water at $2 each and a large pizza at $13. The total cost was $21. So since we know the total, we'll start with that. And what did the $21 consist of? Well, part of that was a $13 pizza. That's a one-time cost, right? And then bottles of water at $2 each. So it's 2 times however many bottles of water he got, right? So if it was 3 bottles of water, it'd be 2 times 3, which is $6, right? So we can see that relationship there. That 2b tells us the total amount he spent on water. Well, now that we have our equation, we can flip, combine, and divide. We'll flip the 13 so that we have only our number terms on this side. Remember, when we flip, we do change the sign. Bring down 2b. Then we will go ahead and fight the war here. So you subtract, that's going to be 8. And so we have 2b equals 8, and we'll divide both sides by 2, which gives us 4 bottles of water. That's our answer. And then once again, we can confirm if we do 2 times 4, so that's the total amount we spent in water, plus the $13 pizza is $21. All right, that ends lesson 2.2.